everyone! Sorry it's been so long since we posted our last video. It's been 3 weeks since we had baby Everly, baby number 4, and life has been just about as crazy as you might think it would be with 4 kids. So that's why we haven't posted in a while. We are adjusting to just this new phase of life, and it's been wonderful and crazy and all of that. But I just wanted to take a minute to share with you guys a little bit more about the birth story, how it went, as well as just VBACs, vaginal birth after cesarean, in general, and the statistics about it, as well as how my 3 VBACs have gone. So we'll just take a minute and share that with you.
Be free with me.
So with my first pregnancy with Trey, our first and only son, I ended up getting induced at 39 weeks, just 1 week early, because that's just kind of what my doctor at the time did. And also with my family being out of town, I wanted them to be here for it. So we induced. And after 23 hours of labor and 2.5 hours of pushing, his heart rate started to drop. And so I had an emergency C-section. And he was so wedged in my pelvic cavity that she really had to yank him out. And the recovery was just excruciating. I was in terrible pain from going through all of that. And it was just really hard. But I knew that I wanted 3 more kids. And one of my good friends at church, who's also a nurse, mentioned to me that she had wanted 4 kids. But after her 3rd C-section, her scar tissue was too thick where her C-section incision had been, and so she couldn't have any more kids. And so she mentioned to me the possibility of looking into a VBAC and just exploring that option. She said there's a great doctor in town who does them. He's got a 97% success rate with them, which is way above national average, which is crazy high. And she just said that way you can have as many kids as you want, and not have to worry about C-section scars. So I looked into it, and I started going to this doctor, and, he really just helped ease my fears about VBAC. The most common fear about VBACs is that is a uterine rupture, that basically your scar where your incision from your C-section was can rupture during labor. And I was pretty nervous about that. How would you know if it ruptures? What would that look like? What are the chances of that? And he really just helped put my mind at ease and said, well, let's just try for it and see how it goes. So the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which is the leading voice in research for everything birth related, they say that your chance of having a uterine rupture if you have a VBAC is less than 1 in 500. So that's a pretty good chance that it won't happen and that you'll be able to deliver vaginally with no problems. They say that if you do have a uterine rupture, the signs of it while you're in labor are either increased bleeding, there's usually pain in between contractions, as well as baby's heart rate might start to drop. And so if any of those happen, they would just get you in for an emergency C-section. So I thought, okay, that's not like, none of that seems too traumatic to where I couldn't, it'd be okay probably if that happened. So I was like, all right, I think we'll try for this. Also, the ACOG says that VBACs are generally safer than repeat cesareans, which I found really interesting. And that even if you have a couple of cesareans, your chance of having a VBAC after that, there isn't really a higher risk involved with that. Unless you have like 3 or more, then your risk of a uterine rupture might go up. And if you have one successful VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean, you should be able to have as many as you want successfully. There's no increased risk of having more. Basically, the thought is just if that muscle, that incision holds up for one labor, it should hold up for more than that just fine. So the only thing really that's different from just a regular vaginal birth with a VBAC is they put an extra IV port in your other arm as well. So you have one here where they give you, your fluids and stuff. And then you have an extra one over here in case they have to do a C-section or something, then they have another place to give you what they need to. Other than that, I really don't think it's any different than just a regular vaginal birth. You can go into labor on your own. You can induce, however that works out, however your doctor thinks that should work out. And you can get an epidural if you want. My doctor actually recommends that just because it helps you relax and helps the muscles to relax more. My problem with the first one, why he thought that I ended up needing a C-section, was that Trey was just too big. My pelvic opening, I guess, is smaller than most women's, and so my big-headed, but not that big of a baby, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, he just couldn't fit. And so that's why with this last VBAC, my doctor suggested we induce a week early before she gets too big so she could hopefully still fit, and she did just fine. So my first VBAC after my cesarean, so my second pregnancy, she was at an oblique angle in my uterus, kind of a little bit sideways, just a little bit off. And so when I went into labor, I had just minor contractions for probably like 18 hours. And it's funny because my second and third labor were almost exactly identical. Had successful VBACs with both of them. Third labor as well, she was turned in an oblique position and took about 18 or 20 hours to, maybe not that long, maybe 16 hours to move down into the right position. And then my water broke and labor progressed very quickly from there. I did get an epidural with both of those, and just an extremely smooth delivery, and the recovery was so much easier than my first recovery after being in labor and having C-section. It all went really good. And so this last labor that just happened 3 weeks ago, she was down in the right position. She had already dropped down into my pelvic cavity, and he induced, like I said, a week early. Little Everly woke up and decided to join us. Now she's back asleep. But anyway, with this last labor just 3 weeks ago, I wanted to have another VBAC, obviously, and so my doctor said the best thing to do would be to induce a week early so she was small enough, and so we did. And so they started Pitocin at 7:30 in the morning, and then at 11 I got an epidural. The contractions were already getting pretty strong, and so went ahead and got an epidural. And then at noon my water broke, and at 3:15 she was ready to come out. I was ready to push, and then she was arrived very just smoothly at 3:30. So it was just an incredibly smooth labor. Like, it really could not have gone more smooth. It was such a blessing, and I was just asking God for that and just believing for that, and I was so thankful that it actually did go so smooth. And the transition once baby got here, these first few weeks have been a little crazy, as to be expected. We've got a 6-year-old boy, 5-year-old girl, a 15-month-old girl, and now her. And so it's been a bit of a whirlwind in our 1,000-square-foot mobile home, just adjusting, to having really 2 babies at one time. And Ava, our little 15-month-old, has been a little jealous. And so just figuring out how to juggle all of that, especially, once Dean went back to work. And really, I just have to go to the next most pressing need at the time and just kind of go from who needs me next, what needs to happen next, who's crying, so it's been a little crazy, but good. And I just want to encourage, all of you, if you're going through a transition, especially something like this, with a new baby at home, no matter if it's your first or your fourth or your 8th, don't be hard on yourself, because it is hard. It's a whole new, way of doing life. And that first week especially can be hard. And it was hard for me because, you're sleep deprived, you're still in pain, you're still recovering. Your hormones are still trying to adjust. You're taking care of a newborn, and that's a lot of work. And it just, even though you come back to the same environment, to your house, life just feels different because everything changes when you have a baby or another baby. So it just takes a little bit of time to figure out your new normal and to get in the swing of things. And we're still figuring that out. And I'm just learning so much of it is dependent on your experience. How that actually plays out is really dependent on your expectations of what it's going to be like. One big thing is just don't set your bar too high of what you expect it, how you expect it to go. Just know that, we're just going to survive. We're just going to do this, and expect you're not going to get a lot of sleep. Expect that it's going to be hard for a while. Expect that you and your spouse are going to be stressed, and that's okay. Just really try to give each other grace and understand that this is a stressful situation, so it's okay that we're trying to adjust to it and it can be hard. So just don't put your expectations too high, and I think it'll go a lot smoother if you start out that way, just saying just make it through. And also for me, just the past 3 weeks, that first week especially, just being exhausted and trying to adjust, it was easy for me to give into those feelings of just discouragement and feeling overwhelmed and just starting to, cry and just give into that discouragement. And I felt like the Lord was just saying, you don't have to fully succeed at this and feel like you're just rocking it and doing awesome. Just stay above those feelings of discouragement. Just stay above the negativity. Even if that's, start to feel discouraged, like, Go watch a show while you nurse baby to get your mind off of it. Just stay above the negativity. Stay above going there and letting yourself give into those emotions or give into those negative thoughts. And sometimes if you can just stay above the negative, that is a success. That is a victory. It'll get easier. And you'll be able to conquer more and feel like you're succeeding more at life as you adjust. But at first, just stay above the negative. That's my advice, and that's what I've been advising myself the last few weeks. There is a verse in James 1 that keeps coming to mind for me lately, and it says, "Consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, of any kind, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance, and you've got to let perseverance finish its work so that you will be whole and mature, not lacking anything." And that's really inspiring to me that, we can't prematurely try to get out of trials or transitions that might be hard in life. Let the transitions in life or the trials bring up the negative stuff up and out of you so that you can deal with it, whether it be a bad attitude or whether it be your impatience or something like that. This time in my life has really brought that stuff to the surface, and I'm having to face it head on and be like, okay, this isn't how I want to respond when I get stressed. I don't want to get impatient. I don't want to yell at the other kids. I want to respond more gracefully, and so Lord, help me do that. But those hard times really help bring that up to the surface to deal with. And that word, the testing of your faith, in that verse is the same word that they used for testing that the silversmiths used for testing the silver way back in the day. They would boil the silver in a big pot till it got so hot that it would bring the impurities up to the surface. And then they would scrape that off and get rid of the impurities. And then they'd heat it again till the impurities got brought off. Scrape that off until they could see the reflection in the silver. They knew that the impurities were out and that it was pure silver. And so that is what is happening in our lives as we go through these transitions and these trials. We let them bring the impurities to the surface, and then we have to deal with them. We have to choose to deal with them the correct way and say, okay, next time I'm not handling it this way. I'm going to choose to be patient. I'm going to choose to be more loving, or whatever it is, and let the hard times shape us and make us whole and mature and complete people, because that really is where we find true happiness and where we find bliss. So I hope this has been encouraging to you guys. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up button. Leave a comment, your thoughts on this or any trials or hard times you're going through. Let us know how we can encourage you. And subscribe to our channel. We'd love if you'd follow us on our journey. And we will see you all in the next video.
Be free.